And so this is the material that I'm covering in Law of Vibration. And the reason why I am covering it here is because it really looks at the relationship between a security, a piece of business, we call it a stock in the stock market, and the relationship between the amount of volume and how much the volume fluctuates, and also that in terms of price, how the price fluctuates. So the reason why I put this in law of vibration is because I will show you this in an illustration in a little bit, but it feels like it's a very constricted area where competition is contrived. It's kind of forced on us. So we're mostly bouncing between greed and fear. So yeah, so I'm going to go into a little bit about some basic mechanics with stock markets, so that when we introduce the time banking element in a couple of weeks, you're going to see how we flip the variables so that it's not so much that we're trying to force people into competitive relationships. It's about expanding the market, not in terms of price, but in volume that is available. And the volume that is available is measured in hours, the time that we spend in a time bank. And the living library conversations is just to kickstart those relationships. So, when you're in a relationship and you're building a relationship within a living library, it's not about exchanging services first. It's just about spending time with each other to recognize each other's value. And if that evolves into a relationship where you are exchanging services within a time bank, then the living library has served its purpose. So we're going to take a look at Alphabet. Alphabet is the parent company of Google. So I'm taking this information from a slideshow I did a couple of years ago in 2022. So this is not up to date information, but I'm putting this up here just to kind of show you the relationship, especially when it comes to big companies or big corporations, the relationship between volume and price and how that affects decisions in a competitive environment. So this is a measurement of the price. So I took a 6 month, just kind of took a snapshot of the 6 months that happened back there in 2022, and so it kind of fluctuated up and down, probably in about a range of about 38%, which we'll see in a moment. Now, these are the shares outstanding. So there's a few billion, there's like a 13 billion, somewhere in the 13 billion. So that fluctuated maybe about 2 to 3%. Here's just a breakdown of it by month back in 2022. So the way I measured it is that the price fluctuated about 38% from its highs to its low over a period of 6 months. Now, the volume itself only fluctuated about 5 to 6%, but that's over a 2 year span. Over in a 6 month span, it was even less. It was more like 1.5%. So I put this up to kind of articulate that the price is all over the place. It's what we call expansive, and the volume, doesn't really move a lot. It kind of stays in a very narrow region. We call that stable. It's the volume is stable. So, so I just want to make a note that, when a stock price goes up, eventually, there are stock splits, and then, you have like a 2-for-1 stock split or a 3-for-1 stock split where the volume, it looks like the volume changes, but the price is adjusted with the volume so that, it's really about competing over price. So I use a football field here to kind of make these measurements, but the volume here, this is the 5 to 6% range. So you can see, how much, it's kind of like going about 6 yards. And the price is like going about 38 yards. That's the percentage. So if you can imagine here, I put them in circles. And if you can imagine the big circle represents, like all the competition, all the people, trying to, get a share of this company, whether it's Alphabet or Amazon or whatnot. There's this big area of competition, but the volume is only 5 to 6%. And so it's like trying to force all of these people who could fit in that big circle, through the small circle. And that's why things get stressful and things get very competitive. I used a diagram in an earlier recording where we show the market economy as being, like this pyramid, like this little pyramid, but the core economy, which is based on time, is this big massive blob, which is 25 times bigger, than the little one. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make these environments less competitive and more collaborative. So I'm going to show you this yin yang here, and this is going to come up in a future conversation. But the point I want to bring home here is the volume is stable. All right, so that's going to work into our equation here as we go forward. And again, this is all the technical stuff. So that's why I'm doing supplementary material so that we can put it back in after we have the conversations here over the next couple of weeks. So if I'm losing you on this stuff, don't worry about it. This is the technical stuff. This is, kind of like the material that really grounds what we're doing and how to make an impact in the financial markets. So you don't have to understand this to make it work for you. It's just a matter of my trying to communicate to those people who are thinking critically and who do understand the mechanics of finances, why this is viable, why it's viable towards achieving universal basic income for everybody. So the volume is stable. That's the point I wanted to make with this demonstration. So Amazon, we're just going to look at another company, Amazon. Again, this is from August 8th, 2022. The pricing, that kind of shows where the pricing had been over the last 6 months. I think that was possibly 60%. We'll see that here in a moment. And the shares outstanding, they kind of fluctuated between 2 to 3% as well. So again, the price 60% all over the place over a 6 months period. So that's a shorter amount of time. The volume only 2 to 3% over 3 years. So the shares outstanding were only about 2 to 3% over the course of 3 years, where the price was 60%. So we'll go back to our football field. Now, the volume at 2 to 3%, when we're going to look at the comparison, the ratio, very small, very, very small. Price 60%. Wow, it's almost the entire length of the field that I have as represented here. We put our little circles in. There you go. It's like a little dot in this massive, massive blob of competition. So it's like trying to fit all that energy that is stored in this big white circle out of the little black circle hole. It's just there's not enough room. It's too stressful. It's too intense. So we'll go back to our yin yang and we'll put in the second part of the equation. The price is expansive. So that's represented by the E, the dollar sign, and the E times V volume, which is stable. So that's going to be the equation that we're starting to work with here. So just to kind of make it bigger to show you what we're going to do in the next couple of recordings is show you how to reverse those variables, how to make the price stable and the volume expansive, so that we create a whole new market that supports everybody, and it's based on time banking. So we'll talk a little bit more about time banking in 2 weeks. So just wanted to bring this up one more time as well, because again, this is my truth, and in competitive environment, I understand my truth doesn't really mean anything. It's kind of like, yeah, Mike, you're full of S, and this material doesn't really matter to anybody in the competitive world. But in the collaborative environments that we're looking to establish, this is what I believe is happening, and this is the lens in which I try to communicate through with people. So what I believe is happening when you're in those stressful environments, especially within the stock market, because I've worked in investment markets and I've worked in that environment as well, and there's very little collaboration, there's very little cooperation. I've been yelled at by my boss a lot by making stupid mistakes. But what I feel happens in those competitive environments is that we experience these feelings. My belief is if we're feeling unsafe, we're feeling guilt, we're feeling shame, apathy, grief, and fear. And that's all in that back quadrant of the brain right here. And again, what we do in especially in the capitalistic competitive environment, we're bouncing back and forth between greed and fear. So once we start to, get past the fear, we start moving into the right front quadrant, which is desire. So, we start to get focused on what we want. If we don't get what we want, we get angry. When we do get what we want, we start to feel a little bit of pride. And if we have enough confidence and have enough pride, we start to develop courage. And that, when we get to that courage, that could go either way. Most people backslide. Where if it's in a competitive environment, you're trying to be better than the other person, you're trying to make profit. You're just trying and trying and trying to be better and better and better and better. That anger and pride and desire backslides into fear, especially when especially when there's somebody over you in the hierarchy and putting that kind of pressure on you. But something happens when you have enough courage and you've experienced courage. Eventually, you shift over into the left quadrant of curiosity, and that's when things start to change a little bit. Now, this is not something where you like take a pill and you're well and everything is great. It's like a muscle. You have to build it up. So, if you're on that edge and you're developing your courage, you start to develop trust in yourself first, and then you develop trust in others as you are going through that part of the brain, which is curiosity, where you're willing to ask questions, you're willing to explore, you're willing to forgive, and you ask yourself, well, what does it mean to really forgive? And then you start to get clarity. You start to get clarity on who you are, what your relationship is with others, and that's where collaborative environments can start to flourish. And then you move into the back right quadrant, which is appreciation, where there's sincere love, um, and joy and peace, and what we call enlightenment. Um, and that's the thing. Enlightenment. I think humanity has done itself a real disservice by convincing itself that enlightenment is something that can be achieved. It's To me, it's just something that we naturally are. And when we're in that flow, when we're in that kairotic flow, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, um, it's much more easier to collaborate. You have sincere appreciation in collaborative environments. And just to kind of wrap it up here, um, I kind of equate the different quadrants of the brain with the experience. Like if you're just concerned about your safety, you're constantly beating yourself up. You're constantly criticizing yourself, and that's what I call unconscious incompetence, where you feel like you can't do anything right. When you move into that right front quadrant, and you're moving through the closer to ultimate consciousness through desire, anger, pride, and courage. That's what I call conscious incompetence, where you're still aware that you're in competition, you're still judging yourself, you're still you're starting to become aware of your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which is something we all learn in business school when we start to learn business, is how to devise a strategy based on threats and weaknesses, but you're becoming conscious of it. When you shift over into curiosity, and the environments are starting to become more collaborative, that's what I call conscious competence. Because even if you're in the middle of a conflict, you're conscious of it. So in the collaborative environments, you are starting to become aware about how to become a facilitator, how to facilitate collaborative environments, and even when conflict starts to come up, you're aware of how to manage that. And then finally, when you're in the appreciation phase and things are flowing naturally, and you're getting closer to the top of that ultimate consciousness, or what they call expansive consciousness, it starts to become second nature, where everybody understands that there is no competition. We all have a role to play, and we're all supporting each other in playing that role. And that's when things feel effortless, and it's what I call unconscious competence. So I'm going to break here on the law of vibration material, and this is where I'm going to cut it off and start start to go into the next phase. So I'm just going to roll right through in this recording. But in the law of cause and effect, in this conversation, I'm going to talk a little bit more about why we call it a karmic margin call. Margin call is in the stock market when the debts are called in, when the lender calls in their debts that that the broker has used to purchase stock, where they have to either sell off shares or give back part of their profit to cover their debts. The reason why I call it a karmic margin call is because my theory, and again this is my truth, is that the top 1% in our world, whether you want to call them the elite or whatever, they're borrowing our time. They're borrowing our time and labor. I personally, my story, I feel like the commons have been exploited quite a bit. So those 5 quadrillion hours have kind of been borrowed from the commons for the market to make their profit. And now we're calling in those debts by creating a time bank that renegotiates the value of an hour, the value of time between the commons. So we're forced in the commons to compete in the market or serve in the state, by voting or by applying to public office or whatnot. But now we're starting to shift the tables a little bit, and we're asking the market and the state to come play in the commons, where we're going to renegotiate the value of an hour. And this slideshow presentation is really just breaking down the numbers about how I came up with the fact that that the commons is only worth 4 cents an hour to the market, and getting right in the middle, of that system and starting to understand how we can change it. But first, we're going to deal with big numbers, big systems, and we're going to look a little bit more at the relationship between the financial system and our time, so that we can start to understand a little better how to apply a new time banking system to even out the distribution of global wealth. So here at the top here, at the moment, the global population is at 8,200 million. So all of this is going to be based on that population of 8,200 million. So there are 365 days a year, 24 hours in a day. So we're not counting leap days in this. That comes down to 8,790 hours a year. So that's what everybody has. If you are a human being living on this planet, you have 8,790 hours in a year, give or take 24 hours on a weekday. So you take that 8,790 hours a year times 72 years. Now that's an average life expectancy. I've been keeping an eye on the global average life expectancy, and it turns out that it's about 72 years. So the average person will live to be about 72 years. Some will live to be older, some will be younger, but that's the average life expectancy according to my data. So for every human being that lives 72 years, that's 632,880 hours per person over the lifespan. So you take that times 8 billion people, and what you got is 5.19 quadrillion hours. So that is how I measure social capital. So this is what the commons have as an asset. And I kind of muse at the at the at the irony that is called social capital, because if you break it apart, it's socialism against capitalism, but you put them together, you've got this asset that the commons have, and we call that social capital. So I wanted to make a note there on that. So you take that 5.19 quadrillion hours, divide it out over the $315 trillion global debt that is currently being reported. Now, remember, this is global. This is not just the United States, although the United States probably contributes to about 10% of that debt. I think they're up to 36, 37 trillion in debt at the moment, so more than 10%. You divide that all out, that's about 6 cents of a dollar. So it's 6 cents per hour. So that's how much everybody in the commons is worth, according to just the debt, according to the market. So now, 6 cents an hour So now when you put in, so you divide that out by $1, what that comes up to is that 16.6 hours that you are putting in of your life just to give $1 its value in the current marketplace. But wait, there's more. So what you do now is you take the debt and now you take it in comparison to the GDP, because what you're doing is you're working to pay taxes, you're working to support your country, you're supporting, you're supporting the ideology of what it means to be a citizen of the nation that you're in. So we break that down, we do the ratios. The 6 cents in debt that is going to the market is also, you take away, the 3-to-1 ratio, 3 trillion to 1 trillion, because the global GDP is 110 trillion. You take the 3-to-1 ratio, that's 2 cents now, that's going to the state, or going to contributing to your country, whichever country that you happen to be a citizen of. And now you're looking at 4 cents an hour. So you're being hit on both sides. So we take that away, because that's not going to you. That's not going to you as a sovereign being. That's you paying the corporations in the market and paying, the nation that you live in, because what that is, you're not a part of a sovereign nation, especially in America. We run more like a corporation. So that's going towards, the corporation of America. And then what that does is it gets it down to 4 cents an hour. So you are spending 25 hours of your life, 25 hours of your life. That's a whole day plus an hour, a whole day, a whole night plus an hour, just to give $1 its value. Think about that for a moment. That's why everybody's so pissed off. That's why everybody doesn't feel. That's why everybody feels like they're worthless, that they're not really contributing. That's the reason why there's this illusion that we're angry at each other, because our lives, our time is being extracted to the tune of 25 hours just to give $1 its value. Let that land for a moment, because as we go on in these presentations, we're going to get in the middle of that, and we're going to discuss and explore how to change that dynamic. And it starts by participating in a living library, participating in a time bank, and renegotiating the time, renegotiating the value of an hour with each other. See, this is not going to come from this, the answers, the restitution is not going to come from the top down. It's going to come from the bottom up as we renegotiate the value with each other. Because at first, the state and the market, they're doing their thing. That's okay. Let them play their game. We're playing a new game. So thank you for listening. I'm going to edit this back into the master presentation when we go over law of cause and effect, or karma. So I hope this was insightful and enjoyable. And yeah, I'll probably release this separately, if you just want to follow along more of the technical information. So please, if this appeals to you, if this resonates something, if this sparks something in you, please reach out to me. This is where we really need a lot of the support, is the people who get this technical end of it, because this is what's going to make it more real. This is what's going to put the rubber to the road and speed things up. So I like talking about the philosophy. I like talking about why this is important, but this information, this technical information, is really getting down to the nitty-gritty about how to do this, how to create universal basic income, and to do it more in a timely manner. So I'll be back, and I'll be presenting more of this and tying all the loose ends together. But thank you for listening.